Episode 18:11,000 BC. Barbecue on Earth. Mars 12,000 BC. 10:30 a.m. Mars time. The Shell spacecraft cruises in the Martian space. In the cockpit, in front of the middle control console, sat the Martian monkey. In front of the fire control console on the left, sat the Martian bison. In front of the monitoring and communication console on the right, sat the Martian fox. The monkey enter. Motor time cruise. Target 11,000 BC. On the console and press the execute button. The light inside the spacecraft dimmed, leaving only the dim indirect lighting environment. And Mars outside was like a vortex of water. Mars outside became clear again. And the large screen displayed a panoramic image of Mars on the subtitle, 11,000 BC. Mars. The spacecraft skimmed over the sea, crossed the coast, and hovered over a space base. At the launch site of the base, a butterfly-shaped spacecraft was parked. The outer surface of the spacecraft is silver-gray metal, with a diameter of 150 meters and a height of 15 meters. There are some transparent windows along the outer periphery, and below, there are 8 circular jet engine nozzles. There is a line of Martian text on the spacecraft, Mars Earth Pioneer 5. Several vehicles are filling the spacecraft with water, fuel and other liquids. There is an open door on the spacecraft. On the sides of the door can pass 2 large trucks side by side. Some vehicles go in and out, transporting goods inside. After the operating vehicles evacuated, more than 20 Martians entered the spacecraft, and then about 500 humanoid robots lined up to enter the spacecraft. And the door of the spacecraft was closed. The Martians around the butterfly-shaped spacecraft retreated to the distance, and a long whistle sounded above the base. The staff at the launch site and the spectators in the square who saw off the spacecraft were all waving to the spacecraft. The engines of the butterfly-shaped Martian spacecraft all sprayed red flames, slowly leaving the surface of Mars, gradually accelerating through the clouds, flying out of the atmosphere, and entering the dark space. Shell spacecraft followed the butterfly-shaped spacecraft. Around the main gun platform sat MUI Guangwu, Bidaluji Guang, and Ansam Zundamon frog. In front of them, on the navigation screen of the console, the spacecraft had left the orbit of Mars and was flying towards the Earth. The deck of the Shell spacecraft. The large screen showed a panoramic image of the Earth and the subtitle, 11,000 BC, Earth. The spacecraft followed the butterfly-shaped Martian spacecraft into the blue atmosphere, passed through the clouds, and below us the blue sea. The spacecraft passed over the sea at a low altitude. The color of the seawater gradually became lighter, and the seabed could almost be seen. On the sea, groups of rafts were floating. On the rafts, fishermen wearing straw sandals on shorts woven from tree bark propped up the boats with bamboo poles. Some used fishing forks, and some were fishing. Suddenly, a huge black shadow, almost emerging from the water, split the ripples and rushed towards the group of rafts. "It's a shark," MUI Guangwu said as he ran over, picked up the rapid gun, aimed at the shark, and fired a short burst. The water splashed. The shark fluttered a few times, and lay in the water with its white belly facing up. The surrounding seawater turned red. The fishermen on the raft stopped their work, knelt on the raft facing the spaceship, put their hands together and prayed, and then paddled the boat to surround the shark. The butterfly-shaped Martian spaceship left the coast and flew inland along a large river, passing through a large plain. There were continuous mountains in front of it. It did not continue to move forward, circled for a week, and then landed at the foot of a small hill. The Shell spaceship stayed in the air, cruising near the butterfly-shaped spaceship, observing the movements of the butterfly-shaped spaceship. The door of the butterfly-shaped spaceship opened, and the humanoid robots lined up and walked down. The Martians also walked down the spaceship and began to carry things out. The first thing to be dragged out was a few old-fashioned giant cannons, which were arranged around the spaceship. Some machine guns were also transported down and scattered around the periphery, and some humanoid robots stayed at the cannons and machine guns to guard the weapons. Some excavators and other construction machinery were dragged out. Some crawler entire tractors drove out and parked in an open area. Then, a batch of agricultural machinery used behind the tractors was dragged out. Several temporary tents were set up, and the Martians began to prepare to make a fire and cook in the tents. The humanoid robots divided the work. Some began to dig the foundation with excavators, and some drove logging trucks to the hillside to cut logs and transport them back to the base to prepare to build houses. A huge stone was transported back from the mountain and placed outside the gate of the base. A line of large characters was engraved on the boulder, the fifth vanguard of Mars Earth colonization. The seashell spacecraft landed on the other side of the hill. Neon Sangzu broadcast, dear passengers. This is the Earth 11,000 BC. The hatch of the spacecraft will remain open until dark. Passengers leaving the spacecraft, please pay attention to safety. Do not act alone, and be alert to being attacked by wild animals. If you hear the alarm on the spacecraft, please return to the spacecraft as soon as possible. Please be sure to return to the spacecraft before the humans outside are still in the Stone Age. Please avoid contact. If you get lost in this world, the spacecraft cannot stay here indefinitely to search. Please be careful. She added, let's go hunting and eat wild game tonight, Mimiwa Iguangu suggested. No, the bison has gone down with the monkey. Let's stay behind, Biida Ujiguang said. I just finished broadcasting, and we are going to go there by ourselves. I won't go, Nanian Songzu said. Then you stay, I'll go out alone. Himiwa Iguangu said, forget it, I'll go with you. I'm going to hunt bison. Then Nanian Songzu said, I don't want to stay on the ship alone with the big-headed Martian. I'll go too, Biida Ujiguang said. Wait a minute, I'll go find something, Hemiwa Iguangu said. After a while, he came back with a big sack. What is it? And Nanian Songzu opened it curiously. There was a compass, a kerosene lamp, a fishing fork, a fishing net and some ropes, as well as a simple tent, a barbecue stove, charcoal, an iron pot and some water. Are you going to camp in the wild? And Nanian Songzu asked. If you are scared, you can go back, Hiemiwa Iguangu said. I'd better go back, Biida Ujiguang said. What are you doing? Let's go together. And Nanian Songzu grabbed her. The three of them came to the river. The riverbank was a sand dune covered with green grass. The river water was clear. There are so many fish here, and Nanian Songzu said, took out the fishing fork, and in a blink of an eye, a big carp was caught by him. Biida Ujiguang took out a net bag from the sack, and she returned to the river and called an Nanian Songzu. The carp is not delicious. There are bigger crabs here. Let's catch crabs together. Hemiwa Iguangu set up the tent on the sand, spread out the sleeping bag, and tried to lie down. The cool autumn air felt good. Through the door of the tent, he watched the two people by the river clumsily catching crabs. Don't fall into the river, he was thinking. And then Nanian Songzu fell backwards, shouting something. Hemiwa Iguangu got up and ran out of the tent to the river. He saw that it was a turtle biting his finger. Seeing Biida Ujiguang draw out the sword and behead the turtle, and Nanian Songzu shook her hand, trying to get rid of the turtle. Hemiwa Iguangu comforted her not to panic, while grabbing her arm and pressing her hand into the water in the basin where he was going to wash his hands. Hemiwa Iguangu reached out to grab a branch, and when he turned around, he saw that the turtle had let go, and then Nanian Songzu's hand had been retracted. While Hemiwa Iguangu was washing Nanian Songzu's fingers with water, Biida Ujiguang had already put the sword back into the scabbard, ran back to the tent to get the first aid kit, disinfected her fingers, and wrapped them with gauze. Then Nanian Songzu looked at the turtle swimming in the water, drew out the sword to cut it, but was stuck by Hemiwa Iguangu. Why am I so stupid? I didn't catch the crab, and I was bullied by such a thing. Hemiwa Iguangu hurriedly comforted. Stew it in soup tonight. Hemiwa Iguangu seemed to suddenly remember something. Have you eaten wild boar meat? He asked Biida Ujiguang. 緑地から海沿いのビーチまで続く公園があります。物語はここで起こります。 Have you eaten bear meat? Yes. Oh, here are those things on Mars. I see. I'll go look for it, and I'll get you one for everyone to eat later, he said. MUI Iguamu found a raft. He paddled the raft, and got a perch. When he returned to the shore, Anani and Songzu and the others also caught a few crabs. MUI Iguamu grabbed the carp and threw it back into the river. That perch is enough. This carp is not tasty. Let him live, he said. The three people moved the things back to the vicinity of the tent. Anani and Songzu and Biidao Guam refused to stay in the tent. Helplessly, MUI Guamu instructed them to put on hiking boots, put on their clothes and nets, and leave the river together and enter the forest. Passing by a dirt slope, white hair suddenly jumped out. Anani and Songzu signaled the two people not to move, and took out a long whip from her backpack. With the whip, the hair lay on the ground and did not move. She put away the whip and picked up the hair. The three people continued to walk deeper into the forest. The three people came to the depths of the dense forest, and there was an open low-lying grassland in front of them. On the opposite side, the grass was shaking. It seems to be a wild boar, MUI Guamu whispered. And the three people hid behind the tree and observed quietly. Across the grassland, there were some rustling sounds, and a big wild boar suddenly jumped out of the bushes and rushed towards them like crazy. The three men rushed out with swords in hand, and MUI Guamu stabbed the wild boar's heart with a sword. The wild boar fell to the ground with a thud and did not move. The three men approached and found that there was an arrow stuck in the wild boar's body. There was a commotion on the opposite side, and a group of primitive people, some holding bows and arrows, and some holding pointed wooden sticks, came up and surrounded the wild boar and the three people in the middle. MUI Guamu tried to communicate with them, but they could not understand, and could only squeak and raise their weapons high, as if threatening. Several primitive people approached Annie and Songzu and Biidao Guam, trying to push and pull them. MUI Guamu saw Biidao Guam's face showing anger, and was about to draw his sword. He flew over and kicked the two primitive people away, and swung his sword down to cut off the wooden sticks of the other people. The primitive people retreated in fear, and Annie Songzu took a step forward to intimidate, but the primitive people only retreated 2 steps, staring at the wild boar lying on the grass, refusing to disperse. Just as they were in a stalemate, the roar of animals came from afar, and the trees were shaking. The primitive people showed a timid look, scrambled to escape into the dense forest, and only 3 people stayed in the middle of the grass. A huge brown bear came out of the woods and walked towards them. Seeing that the 3 people did not move, the brown bear seemed to protest, raised its 2 front paws, stood on the ground, let out a long howl, and continued to walk towards them. Several arrows were shot from the forest, hitting the thick fur of the brown bear and falling to the ground. The brown bear was furious, speeded up, and rushed straight towards them. And Annie Songzu threw a hair to it. The brown bear stopped, lowered its head to finish eating the hair, looked up at them, and rushed towards them again. The brown bear rushed to the front, and the 3 people dodged together. The 3 swords pierced the brown bear's body together. The brown bear roared and took a few steps forward, then fell to the ground. It did not move. The primitive people shouted and rushed out of the dense forest again, surrounding the 3 people in the middle. A few brave ones went forward to see the brown bear lying on the ground. What should we do? And Annie Songzu said, they can't understand the language. Biidao Guam said, it seems that they are hungry, so why not give them to them? And Annie Songzu said, I won't give them to you. If you have the ability, go and kill them yourself. At this time, a group of deer suddenly ran from the dense forest into the grassland. A Martian and 3 Martian human bull followed closely behind. Seeing the 3 people on the grass and the brown bear and wild boar on the ground, the Martian was stunned and stopped where he was. The deer took the opportunity to get into the dense forest from the opposite side and escape. Another group of people who don't understand human language has come, and Annie Songzu said, and when he was about to raise his sword to drive them away, the surrounding primitive people knelt down together. facing the machines and the humanoid robots, clasped their hands together, and muttered something. Suddenly, there was a loud gunshot, and the machines came out of the dense forest. "It's the buffalo and the monkey," the LaoDi said. "What are they saying?" And then Songsu asked in the poor Martian language he had just learned recently. "Praying to God," Bison said. Bison and the Martian with the humanoid robot quarreled for a few words, and 3 humanoid robots stepped forward to block Bison. Bison raised his shotgun, aimed at the humanoid robots, and was about to fire. Hemiwai Guangwu raised his hand and fired. The muzzle of the gun pointed to the sky, and a puff of green smoke spurted out. The sound was deafening. Bison drew out the golden sword, and Hemiwai Guangwu took the sword and rushed forward. And the two fought together. The buffalo relied on its immense strength to smash down with its heavy sword. Hemiwai Guangwu's body and sword merged into one, and the sword was as smooth as flowing water. In the gap where the buffalo was defending, the sword pierced the vital point. Within 10 rounds, the buffalo was already losing. The buffalo jumped out of the circle, raised the sword high, and the golden sword emitted a dazzling purple light. Hemiwai Guangwu looked up at the sky and swung the sword, shouting "Yang!" and the sword emitted a blue light all over. LaoDi shouted "Ha!" and the sword burst out with a strong blue-purple light, wrapped in a purple halo. The 3 swords chopped down at the same time, like 3 thunderbolts falling from a clear sky. 3 flames streaked across, leaving 3 deep trenches crossing the grass, and the surrounding trees fell down. The primitive man was so scared that he knelt on the ground and shouted out repeatedly. The 3 people looked at each other, and the buffalo shook his head helplessly and put the golden sword back into the scabbard. The Martian with the humanoid robot talked to the primitive man for a few words, and then said something to the buffalo. The buffalo motioned to Hemiwai Guangwu and the other two to go with them. The primitive men saw that the wild boar was timid and did not dare to move forward. Hemiwai Guangwu lifted the wild boar's hind legs and put that on the back of the primitive man. The primitive man saw that he was about to be crushed, and several primitive men immediately stepped forward to help. The other primitive men shouted and dragged the brown bear towards the forest. In the primitive tribe, the stone pile Togon was blazing, and the wild boar and bear were packed. The buffalo motioned to Hemiwai Guangwu and the others to stay and eat barbecue together. Hemiwai Guangwu gestured and said, and then the buffalo understood that the 3 people had to go first. The buffalo said something to the Martian with 3 robots, and the Martian called over to tribesmen. The 2 primitive men brought a second stuffed a large piece of wild boar hind leg meat, a large piece of bear hind leg meat, and some dried fish into the sack. Hemiwai Guangwu and the other 2 said goodbye to everyone. The tribesmen followed the 3 people with sacks on their backs and left the tribe and returned to the tent by the river. Hemiwai Guangwu went to find a sturdy baggie, put a few crabs in it, and gave it to the tribesmen. And then Songsu stuffed 2 loaves of bread into the hands of the tribesmen, and the 2 tribesmen went back happily. Hemiwai Guangwu tied the beef and bear meat with a rope, then put the meat into the river, rolled up his trousers, washed the meat barefoot by the river, and cut it into small pieces. He packed up the fish and crabs and transported them back to the vicinity of the tent. Hemiwai Guangwu built a grill with stones, went to the woods to get some pine branches, used the charcoal he brought to start the fire, lit the fire, and roasted wild boar meat, bear meat, fish and crabs on the fire. And then Songsu set up a pot on the charcoal fire and cooked a pot of boiled crabs, a pot of boiled sea bass and a pot of turtle soup. Kitararu and then Songsu also prepared seasonings, wild vegetables for barbecue, beer and tableware. On Earth 11,000 BC, a barbecue dinner for 3 people begins.